What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of BYP Back Here Play. Rich Quinones here. Give us a follow on Twitter at RichQ and of course the YouTube channel Rich Q on Q. Tony Cutillo, who does an unbelievable job. First of all, I'm pissed off because I thought it was going to get set up where it wasn't going to be this type of backdrop. You know, that's the first thing I noticed, and then all of a sudden, I mean, it's pristine. I'm trying to squint. It's framed. I mean, I thought I did my stuff up with my little Giants helmet and a couple nice little photos here and there. But
Hey,
you know,
hey, listen, this is all the wife.
Show me up.
It's all the wife, right? Like I bought the stuff, but I'm smart enough to know I can't hang it.
Fantastic.
Like, I bought it. It was like, hey, can you kind of conceptualize this wall for me? And it actually goes all the way around. I got stuff all around here, but that's amazing. That's on her. She designed. I bought, she designed. So.
I was gonna say, whose credit card was it?
Yeah, exactly. I bought.
There you go.
She designed.
Now I know you're with SiriusXM, also founder, Heat Ratio Sports. Talk a little bit about that before we get into some stuff, Tony.
Yeah, man. Listen, for those who don't know, I founded Heat Ratio Sports probably about 5-6 years ago. Started as a little podcast, the Heat Ratio podcast, echoey in the background, no backdrops, wires all over the place.
People mowing the lawn and the grass in the background.
Yeah, you don't know what the hell's going on, right? I'm like, how do I even get a mic drop? How do I get anything, right? So I go back and listen to that first episode. It was painful, but funny and a growing experience, right? So I've been able to grow that with several different shows. We do shows weekly. We do a Heat Ratio live show. I was doing live remotes from Steam in Bucks County.
Nice.
Stopped doing that just because, you know what, honestly, it was just so much time consumption, and I'm a very busy guy, and it kind of was like, what do I need to cut out? So the remote thing for me was the way to go.
Yeah.
We have shows, like I said, whether it be sports betting, whether it be local perspectives, national perspectives, and then obviously, like you mentioned, SiriusXM, the Win Daily Show, Win Daily Sports, every Saturday and Sunday. Saturday right now from 5 to 8 on channel 87 XM, and comes back on Sundays after Super Bowl. And man, you may go on Win Daily Sports TikTok and you might see a Jigsaw character on there every day trying to get the TikTok game up too. You know what I mean, Rich? You gotta stay in the times, man.
It's ridiculous, man. It's so funny. I was talking to someone the other day. It was one of my former interns, and now they're doing two of them. One's in Texas. And I told the kid, you want to work in TV, get the hell out of New Jersey. What? I'm like, listen to me, bro. You have to friggin' move. This is how it works in this industry. And just like that, I was like, look into Texas. Wouldn't you know, the kid applies to one job without a demo reel and he gets the gig. Happy for him. I was talking to him the other day and he's telling me all this stuff. I was like, yeah. I was like, listen to me. He's a nice kid. His name's Tyler. He's a big Michigan fan and annoys the hell out of me. He's got that air to him, but he's a good kid. He's a sweet kid and he's talented. He's like, yeah, we got this stuff now that we're cutting everything up. And, this is what we're doing with the Adobe and the Audition and Next Gen. And I was like, and I joked and I was deadpan with him, Tony. I said, do you guys use any reel to reel? And he looks at me, he's like, what are you talking about? I was like, the mini disc, the reel to reel. You guys don't use cart machines anymore? Like, I'm telling you, like, bro, I used to produce a religious show on Sundays at this little small station in South Jersey back in the day called 1360 WNJC. So when like Jerry Blavitt would come in on Friday nights and just hand us a wad of cash and then go to his remote, I would have to take the cash. I'd run it to the bank. I still to this day never forget, man. It was like summertime in July and these two dudes came in with leather coats and I was like, something's not right here.
Yep.
But the point is, like, to your point, bro, the times you have to adapt. You have to.
You do. You got to adapt. You got to pivot. It's funny. I kind of just told this story. For those who don't know, I always say you have to wear several different hats, right? You can't just have one, Rich. You know that, right? And listen, the prime word is money, right? So unfortunately, I got a family. I'm 44 years old, man. I got bills to pay. I need to make money, right? And as perfecting my craft at the same time. So it's a very interesting, but I said this today. I forget where I was, but I had to pivot during the pandemic, And, I run my own PR company, and I'm a publicist by trade, which is how I got into media. And, traditional PR isn't like it used to be, where
No.
you just, cold pitch executives and just think you're going to. No, you had to pivot during the pandemic. I pivoted to a digital format, and it's been amazing. And it just, I'm not saying that to brag. It's just because you have to learn how to adjust.
Yeah.
Like, and I've networked with a lot of producers, and the first thing they said to me, Tony, I don't have time to read an 8-paragraph story. Can you pitch me a highlight clip real fast? Can you DM me on Twitter? Right. So I'm like, wow, there must be something to this. So, you
Elevator pitch.
pivot, and
Yeah.
you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, no, I hear you, man. And it's a great kind of segue where when you talk about how sports gambling now, everyone during the pandemic, let's go into penny stocks, let's go in the stock market, or let's become this expert. Listen, I always tell people I do not, I'm not pitching you. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'll promote with the best of them, but I'm not coming off as I know X, Y, and Z. Do I have some sports? Boxing's my forte. I can handicap it well. The same with the NFL, good NBA. You learn as you go, so to speak. But it is amazing now how everyone is that kind of expert. So what's the message you convey when you're handicapping, when you're giving out some odds, when my big thing was when I was with AM 1490 talking about money management for beginner gamblers, right? Because you
Yep.
can't go to AC with $1,000, sit at a table and play $100 a hand. You're going to get wiped out.
Yep.
You might be able to do $1,000 at a $15 hand and see if you can turn around. And depending upon if you're counting cards, if you got a progression system, you're bumping up your units, you get out of there with a profit. Same thing with sports betting, man. You can't blow your load all in that one game. You just can't.
No, and I think the misconception for everybody is grab that parlay. And I tell people, relax,
Yeah.
relax. You understand how hard it is to hit a 3-leg parlay. You think it's easy. It looks great. It's really not. So what I've done is I kind of developed my own system. So again, like you said, everybody out there wants to be a handicapper, right?
Yep.
Everybody says they're a handicapper. I don't say I'm a handicapper. Okay. I'm an enthusiast. I'll be straight up honest with you. Am I an expert? No, but I'm very good at my research that I could actually label myself as an analyst. So I create this plus money prop train because I say, you know what? Everybody else is doing the same thing. I'm not going to bet minus 140, minus 120, minus 125. So what I do is I created the plus money prop train where all I do is put out plus money bets, attainable plus money bets. But
Right.
I also say, Rich, like you'll know, relax. I'm not telling you to bet major units on it. It's what it is because they're plus money because the books don't expect them to hit. So, right. So, so I go on TikTok and I throw these plus money bets out there and I get these trolls that come in, even though I'll be honest with you, the other night I was 4-2. The night before I was 5-1. And they're like, oh yeah, great job. You missed that one. But I hit 3 other ones. Do you
Yeah.
understand how
Yeah.
hard it is to hit them?
That's why but see, that's what I'm saying. You open up when you come off, not you per se, but when people come off as a quote unquote expert. And the other thing that's amazing, no one ever posts, it's unbelievable. No one will ever post a losing play. Right?
Very rare.
Like perfect example. Last night had my guy Javon Alford on. Javon. We
Love
talked some
Javon.
NBA,
Yep.
and we 4-1. We cut it, we record it, we got it out there before because I didn't want anyone to turn around and sit there and say, Mr. Friggin' Monday morning quarterback and after the fact. I don't need to hear that shit. I don't need those kind of people in my life.
Yep. Yep.
But to your point, I kind of like that system. And to take it a step further with the parlays, we used to call them back in the day the poor man's bet, right? Let me bet that 25-30 to win back to 70-75. But again, the reason a lot of these books now and a lot of these apps kind of push it because it is the higher, right? It's the lower risk to higher reward.
Yep.
So it's the window dressing at the end of the day. I mean,
Yes.
years ago, I was one game away from hitting a 12-team parlay. I got the ticket at Borgata. It would have paid 67,000, and to this day, it was the Bears and it was Detroit. And I think Stafford either got knocked out of the game or he got hurt, and the Bears wound up winning. It was a fun little bet for me, right? But my thinking going forward was, I'm not doing this every weekend. I'll pick a
Exactly.
game or two, maybe look at the dogs, maybe look at the trends, maybe look at the money lines. And if you hit, you hit. I think now everyone just jumps on Twitter, they hashtag something, they see a guy's 5-0 and he's got a 1-800 number, and all of a sudden, I
Yep.
got to give this guy a call.
Yeah, no, it's funny. I call the parlays the block pools of the sports betting industry, right? When you sit around with grandma, grandpa for the Super Bowl, and everybody's like, "What numbers do I have?" That's the window dressing you talk about.
Yeah.
What I will say is, and I try to explain to people, if you are consumed in playing these parlays, back it up with the single bets on those three legs, right? So if you're going to bet a three-leg parlay, at least do yourself a favor and bet a unit on each one of those single bets to hopefully break even if it doesn't hit. So at least you have fun and you get to keep your money at the same time. But a lot of people don't do that. They just, like you said, they want that low risk, high reward. Obviously plus 1375. All right, man, relax. The odds are that's not going to hit, because if everybody was hitting them, they wouldn't have any money in a sports book.
That 100% on that. Tony Cutillo joining us at T Cutillo 23 Sirius XM Heat Ratio Sports founder. So I was looking at this with the NFL, and I always like to see, preseason, people would jump into the win total. Okay, maybe you get lucky here and there, but I pulled it up. Jalen Hurts was plus 4,000 before the season started. I think right now, currently, right before we started to go to air, I saw right around minus 150, 165, wherever you kind of hang your hat. So I guess I'll I'll ask you for this example. The guy that, look, I think, and we can talk about it in a minute about Hurts winning the MVP, but you have to really have some type of sports acumen, insight, a little, foreshadowing, kind of seeing how it's going to play out if you take that bet. If you have the means and you can blow a couple $100 or 1,000 or 20,000, hey, more power to you. But that's kind of the perfect example where, I did it a couple years ago with Ohtani, and it just so happened that Trout got hurt that year, and it was a nice payout for me. But if you could have argued every season Trout is the best player in baseball. My point with Hurts in the NFL MVP, if you took a flyer on that, it's not a bad bet right now.
It's not. It's not. And I will pat myself on the back,
Uh-oh.
and I keep receipts. Okay. But in the
All right,
preseason,
Salah.
yeah, and I do. In the preseason, I did say that, I didn't say he was going to be MVP, but I did say that there would be times where he would have MVP consideration. And if everything clicked right, he would be one of the favorites. So I listen, Rich, I was a huge believer in Jalen Hurts as soon as he threw on a uniform. And I've coached for many years I coach youth soccer. I've coached softball. I get in the players' heads. I help them get to D1 schools. And I know what it takes to be a professional. And that dude has it. He had the intangibles. I didn't even need to see him throw a football. I just knew that if he could put those mechanics together, he's a leader in the locker room. The intangibles show that he's going to work his ass off.
Agreed.
He's like Rudy. Right? The kid who's never been told he can't do, he's going to continue to do it, defy the odds. And that's what he's done. And I love watching it play out. And you know what? Screw you, Micah Parsons, as well. Okay. Because that came out today too.
Yeah, but I don't know why people are getting so bent out of shape about that, because you know what my retort would have been? Well, let me ask you something, Micah. Is it you or is it the scheme?
Right. Yeah.
And Von Miller, they didn't ask him that. Like, listen, you cut me open, blue's coming out. I mean, that's just, I'm a New York guy. But even I have to sit back, and I always would text my buddies and say, I kind of like this Hurts. Like, he's a gamer. Oh, that means, no, I'm telling you, it means a lot. Like, and I posted it today. I think he's at that point where jump on my back. I'm going to lead you. The problem here is, it's all about the recency bias, right? Because then people will make the case, look at Cincinnati, here comes Burrow. Look at Dallas and Parsons. Look at Patty Mahomes in Kansas City. And it's crazy, especially from a betting standpoint with the bettors and the handicappers, because Kansas City is like one of those teams, right? A couple of years ago, they're 3-4. Hey, take a flyer on them when the AFC West at plus 350, 400. Okay, some of us did. They have that name out there. So it's like, that spotlight's on them. I think this year can be your classic example of Hurts putting up the numbers, leading this team to 13, 14 wins, making a run into the playoffs, doing everything that's asked, and yet the way the voters are,
Mm.
right? It's gonna go to Patrick Mahomes. Well, look what he's doing. I mean,
Yep.
it's just and that's unfortunate. But I'll tell you, if you back Jalen Hurts in a corner and said you want an MVP or a Super Bowl, Super Bowl title, Super Bowl crown. He's going to say Super Bowl crown, obviously, Super Bowl title. But to your
Yep.
point, yeah, I have no problem saying right now at this moment, Jalen Hurts is the MVP. None
Yeah, me
whatsoever.
me neither. Me neither. And it's a new system this year too. So you make a good point about the writers, right? So it's a new system this year that gets voted on by specific writers. And Patty Mahomes is on pace for 5,400 yards and 46 to 48 touchdowns. And they're going to look at that and say, whoa, where, because they're not going to look at the Cam Newton type numbers that Jalen Hurts is putting up, right? They're not going to look at that, the 20 and 10 plus from passing and rushing. They're not going to look at what he means to that team. Mahomes means a lot to that team as well. But again, you can make a statement for a system player, like you said, for any team in the NFL, right? You can make that, right? Like Joe Burrow. Okay, he's got T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, and Joe Mixon.
It's a loaded
Okay,
team. That's a loaded team.
right. I mean, Pat Mahomes, for you saying he has nothing, he has a Hall of Fame coach, okay, and a tight end that's right. That's going to battle Tony Gonzalez as the best ever.
Yeah. It's.
I mean, come on, man. You could say
I
that
hear
on
you,
every
man.
team.
I hear you, and it is again. Could have went back and made the case for Embiid a couple years ago with the MVP, in the NBA MVP. I mean, the year Karl Malone won it because they got tired of voting for Michael Jordan.
Yes.
And I'm looking at December right now. Eagles are laying 9, Dallas is laying 4. Giants on the road, they're getting 4.5. I mean, I don't think Philly should have any type of issue. I don't think they're going to trip up with Chicago. I don't. Maybe you get that late backdoor. Maybe it turns out to be a 31-17 type of game, but that's 14, so you're good. You covered. Dallas, on the other hand, against Jacksonville, man, a little juju. You got a head coach that's familiar with the Dallas Cowboys, and you have a quarterback that's slinging it. A tight end, trust me, that's a friggin' enigma in Evan Ingram, who went off last weekend. This is a tricky spot for Dallas. How would you play this one?
It's interesting, man, because I was never a Doug Peterson guy. Even when he won a Super Bowl, man, I wasn't a Doug guy. But what I will say is he gets the most out of all of his players, right? He just does. He gets the most, and they love him. He's like a big teddy bear out there, man. They love him. And it's funny you say about Evan Ingram because, Mr. Inconsistent, right? All of a sudden, like, it is amazing.
No, it's not. It's a kick in the nuts. It's a disgrace.
Come on, man. You got Daniel Bellinger. You should be happy. But now I'm just kidding. But now it's going to be interesting because Doug's a really smart guy and McCarthy's really not. And that team's going to win in spite of McCarthy. So I think Doug's got a couple things up his sleeve. And as long as Trevor Lawrence can be protected, that's the main thing. If you can protect Trevor Lawrence, he will decide for a good game plan against you, and they can win that game.
Yeah, they have a good offensive line. They run the ball a little bit as well. You got the Giants and Washington. I mean, I said this the other night when I cut 27 and Q with Brandon. I said, that's an NFC East game. You're at home. I don't care if you lose. I don't. But show up and fight and compete. And they're so void of talent. It's utterly ridiculous. I mean, they're 6-1, 7-2, nice story, but the hens have come home to roost. You just see that they're so thin. But I also made a point, and tell me if you agree or disagree. Let me see. Okay, give Saquon the 20 plus carries. Let Daniel Jones do what he needs to do, because that's a game where if they win that game and they look good doing it, which I don't think is going to happen, even if they win, it'll probably be ugly. At least you can turn around and say, you know what, let's consider what we're going to do with these guys come the offseason. If we're going to give them a contract, if we're going to extend them, if we're going to tag them, if we're going to tender them. Other than that, man, if you go out and spit the bit, that's pretty much all she wrote with this team right now.
Yeah, listen, a lot of credit to Brian Dable, man. I'll be honest with you. I did not. And he's a really fiery dude, man, like up in your face kind of guy.
Yeah.
And he's another guy who gets a lot out of his players.
Yes.
And listen, as well as I do, Rich, it's about the quarterback. At the end of the day, it's about the quarterback. And, you hit the nail on the head. Danny Jones are you riding Danny Jones into the future? And, Danny Dimes has to show you that he is the guy. And quite frankly, I don't know if he's had an opportunity to be able to show you that he's the guy, whether it be offensive line health, whether it be missed receivers in the
Yeah, yeah,
draft. I mean, Kenny Galladay, the enigma of Kenny Galladay, right? I knew I'd get an eye roll out of you there, right? So I mean, there's so many different
horrible.
tales of this that it has so many legs, man. It really does.
No, Tone, it's a great point because you say that to a Giant fan. I don't know if you can really fairly judge him this year. They want to jump off the friggin' bridge. I mean,
Yeah.
but that's the reality is he's throwing to Sills, Hodges,
Oh,
Richie James, no Tony bust. Robinson goes down. Shepard goes down. Galladay, the other day I was pouring milk in my coffee and he was on the friggin' carton. We don't know where he is, right? So, I mean, it's like, to your
it's
point,
crazy.
yeah, I don't have a problem if they bring him back. I think as crazy as this sounds, they're going to get a late turnover. The defense is going to have to win that game Sunday night, and they get out of there with one of those 17-16 type of games.
Classic NFC's battle, man.
Yeah, which suits them. Listen, I was so depressed Sunday because it was just a friggin' debacle. Like my father used to tell me those were the days if you have leaves, go and rake them.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was. That I just started to watch like 2007 and 2011 playoff runs.
Wow.
Like
Wow.
I needed therapy for like an hour or so. Is Jalen Hurts, you're a Philly guy, you're an Eagles guy, Jalen Hurts right now, the body of work, and I know it's still young, where do you put him when we start to talk about the pantheon of all-time great Philadelphia Eagles quarterbacks, right? When you think of the run that went, obviously Jaws in late 70s and the 80s, Cunningham's the mid 80s to even though those Buddy Ryan teams never won a playoff game, right? And then McNabb and all those runs with Andy Reid. I'm not going to really throw out, the Van Brocklins for a couple of years or the
Right.
Sonny but where do you put him right now? And where do you think he's going to wind up?
Wow, it's a big lineage, man. It really is. And I'm a McNabb guy. I'm always the guy who says McNabb's never got enough credit in this town. He's the best quarterback of all time in Philadelphia. You can argue with me to the end of the day. But Hurts is, listen, man. I mean, you look at Cunningham, right? You look at Jaws, you look at McNabb. I take Wentz out of the equation only because of the way everything went down.
Yeah.
I can't even put him in that list. I can't, right? There's something off with that dude, man. Like seriously, he must have the biggest ego in the world because, right?
It's Ginger Jesus, man.
Right. You know what, man? Sometimes that's all fraud too, but don't get me started with that. No FCC rules on this show, right? But you can speak everything you want, but at the end of the day, relax, Carson, relax, because it's funny. You remember that the story with Joe San
Cutillo, yeah,
right?
and
I'm sorry, I
he
butchered his
got
name.
hammered,
Killed,
crushed, and to his credit, little Joe, soft little Joe, because I know he's a boxing guy. I know Joe stood his ground, man, and it was like it was a firing squad.
It was crazy, man.
Yeah,
it was crazy, and he was right. Like, you're right. He was right. I tell everybody that, dude, he was right. I mean, he was getting death threats. He was getting dog manure in his mailbox.
That's horrible.
People were that invested in Carson Wentz. Really? And look at it now. This is, you can just see that he has a problem when he's not being heralded as the guy. Sure. That's the issue with Carson. So his career, Rich, to me is over because he's going to have to be a backup for the rest of his 100%. Career, and he doesn't want to be.
100%. He's shot. He's not the same guy. He goes down in that Rams game, and the worst thing that happened to Carson Wentz was Nick Foles to come in and win a Super Bowl. Right. Yep. Hurts is the antithesis of that. I mean, you do that one. I mean, this is a guy, like I said, they want to run through a brick wall. I mean, are we going to sit here in 5, 6, 7 years and say he's the greatest Eagles quarterback? I mean, he'd have to win a Super Bowl, would he not?
He would definitely have to win a Super Bowl. I'm not ready. Listen, like I say, I bring back the McNabb games and the career that McNabb had in Philadelphia, and it's very hard for me to expect somebody to replicate that success for that long. I mean, the guy threw 4 touchdowns on a broken ankle in Arizona. I still remember not to get on a sidetrack here, but you talked about watching old memories. You're going to remember this game because you're a Giants fan.
Yeah.
But I remember a Monday night game,
Yep.
the old like Jim Fossil, Andy Reid Wars Monday night game.
I was at that game.
Right? It was literally, I think it was 3-3. Okay. And it was going in fourth quarter. McNabb rolls out. The Eagles couldn't do anything. No matter how good the Eagles were.
Play.
Fossil had their number, right?
Yep.
The roll out to James Thrash in the end of the end zone, sliding out, and they win the game.
Yeah.
But that was what McNabb was,
yeah.
right? And he was a leader. Say what you want, he was a leader. Yeah, there was the issues with T.O. and all that, but that's here nor there. So Jalen Hurts for me, yes, would have to win a Super Bowl. But for me to sit here and think that he can replicate that career of McNabb, I don't know, man. The NFL is different. The game, the studying of the game film, of these players and the attitudes coming out of college, completely different. There's some monsters and there's some very talented guys. So it's hard for me to say I'll stand the test of time, but I'll tell you what, for the next, I'll say 3 to 4 years, if he continues, which he should, he'll be an MVP candidate every single year.
The problem with McNabb was that he was very thin-skinned.
From day one,
and passive aggressive.
Yes.
Right. And it was, it's
he still is.
Yeah, because there's that, it's not even that competitive burning desire. It's that insecurity where, man, I couldn't get to where these guys are. He had a great career. He had a great career, no doubt. But I also think what helps today's athlete is the advantage of social media. Because if you win over the flock, right? Pardon me, of social media,
yep,
you're golden, man. You're because you basically you placate to the masses. If McNabb, say social media is around 2005, 6, whatever, Super Bowl when he gets sick, and someone puts a gift up of him throwing up, I mean, he's going to go off. Like he doesn't have the temperament to deal with it. I think social media, and it's crazy, man. It plays in like Parsons, or making a comment and having to walk it back or backtrack it. I think that helps some of these athletes if they play it the right way, right? If they play it the other way and they go after the fans. I mean, I remember someone told me many, many years ago, it doesn't matter who calls up and gives you shit on the air. You never attack your listeners. It's the same with athletes. You don't attack the fans.
Yeah.
But McNabb was one of those,
listen, I mean, that was the dirty 30, right? That was the dirty 30, at the draft. Everybody wanted Ricky Williams, and we thought we were getting Ricky Williams, and they mentioned McNabb, and he's getting booed. But he never, like you said, he was so thin-skinned, he didn't understand that we weren't booing McNabb. Yeah. We were booing the pick, right? He couldn't grasp that, because at the end of the day, when he first got into that game against Washington, and I think it was, I don't know if it was Darryl Green, whoever it was that he shimmy shake by the goal line, and that dude got his ankles broken. McNabb ran in the end zone. From that day on, we were loving some Donovan McNabb, and we were clamoring for Joe Banner and get him a receiver, please. Can you please get me somebody, right? And he just didn't do it. They waited till late in the game. They finally did it, right? They bring T.O. in.
Yep.
They gave him a bullshit contract, which T.O. knew it was a bullshit contract.
Yeah, and to his credit, he called him out on it.
Yes,
and
he did.
Listen, if T.O.'s not, I mean, gutty and gritty. And I also think and I remember I was on the air with a Fox Sports affiliate in Delaware during this year. When he got benched in Baltimore, and it was horrible because, not that he got benched. I mean, I'm not going to lie. I'm like, he's not playing well. I mean, it is what it is, right? That was the same year where they had the tie and whatnot. When Andy Reid stuck in, I know, right? Sorry.
That's awesome.
I mean, come on, you guys just fucking put up 48 points against me. I can have a friggin'
I know. I get it. All right, relax.
When he put in Cobb, I'll never forget. I'm like, what is he doing having this? I remember I came on the air saying, you got a rookie greener than the grass and you have him in a 7-step drop. And he got the pick 6 going the other way. Even when they went back to McNabb, right? Because remember, that's the year Plaxico shot himself.
Yep.
The Giant season was derailed. and that jack off goes into friggin' Giant Stadium and runs for the first down and picks up the phone. Like, that was a horrible day for me, but you guys were loving it. But it's even that season itself, right? He never really wanted to sit there and say, I got to play better. See, that's all fans want to hear. That's all fans. That's why a player like Ben Simmons, and I said this years ago, he just is not cut out for certain cities and certain teams. He's not. And you can have all the talent in the world, but if you're not giving an honest effort, fans are smart. New York fans, Chicago fans, Philadelphia fans, Boston fans, they can sniff out that BS and that lack of effort. They can see it a mile away. Come on, man. You know that.
Yep. Listen, man, I I'm going to bring this up, Rich, because like, again, because I get the nickname Jigsaw for a reason, because I go with people, right? We go back and I love it. It's all great, man. We go back and forth, and I'll admit when I'm wrong, but I like to say when I'm right. And I remember I wrote an article. So when Ben Simmons was drafted, the first thing I said was, "It's a bad pick." I already know it was a bad pick. He's not going to, for everything you just said, he's not going to mesh here in Philadelphia. He's a me guy. He's an entitled athlete. He's been given everything in the world. There's no way he's going to last here. So after the first year, obviously he doesn't play the first year, breaks his foot or whatever the hell he does in Vegas, right? So right away, I'm like, it's already starting off a rocky relationship.
Yeah.
So the second year, he comes out and he starts playing well, and I still saw the attitude. I knew this was going to end bad, and I said, you know what? Right now, I would trade Ben Simmons right now for Paul George. Everybody told me, you're out of your mind. I'm like, listen, I want to win now. We've been tanking in Philadelphia. I'm so tired. It goes back to the friggin' Willie Green days and the Billy Williams, John Williams, all these stiffs that we had as coaches, right? Like, I just got so annoyed. And I'm like, we have an opportunity to win now. No, let's hold on to Ben. We got to hold on to Ben. And how did it end up? Like, just for simple facts that you said, you cannot look you can't study sports without looking, like you said, forward thinking, right?
Yeah.
And, and I could see the way this is going to play out. I just knew it wasn't going to end well.
I couldn't stand, and again, full disclosure, I'm a Knicks fan. So I've had,
so,
but I can't, the tanking to this day, I got to friggin' listen to people. I'd rather shove Q-tips that are lit on fire in my ears. Like, stop with this, well, they try to spin it, and we, this narrative, this agenda. Well, if they didn't do this, we wouldn't have been in there. Come on, man. You know what you're doing right now? Let me pull up some numbers for you. You're wasting player A's career: 35-11, 39-7, 38-12, 53-12, 31-7. Okay. You're wasting Embiid's prime right now. And it has nothing to do with the tanking or this. It's just the cultural, the way they look at things. In the NBA, when the window shuts, I got news for you. It friggin' shuts. It closes, right? Look what's going on with the Lakers. Thank God you get to win in the bubble. Look what's going on with Golden State. They might be the defending NBA champs. You stick them on the road, they suck. They're learning. You only have a certain window of opportunity. Now, those teams, apples and oranges, right? We can agree. Hall of Famers across the board, no doubt. But with the Sixers, if you don't, first of all, I can't. Doc Rivers to me is a horrible head coach.
Horrible.
Like,
horrible.
Yeah, it's just too many instances where, and you don't want to see people get fired. I get it, but sometimes you need to change. It's the voice, and I get it. The injuries and Maxey and Hart. Okay, fine. But this is a perfect example that you kind of brought up, where the fan base knows, right? Whatever you did 4 or 5 friggin' years ago has no bearing on today. And right now, what you're doing is you're letting this guy go out, log the minutes, play both ends of the floor, and you're wasting his prime, because the way he plays, who's to say he's not going to get hurt again?
I listen, you're echoing my biggest fear. And, that window, like, for everybody to talk about, listen, this guy was a generational talent, generational superstar. He still is.
Yeah.
But that window, That window is slowly closing. We're not
Agree.
at the prime anymore. People have to understand that. I keep saying it's
No.
slowly coming down. And the year, Rich, for me was the Kawhi Leonard year. Okay. And, I wanted to trade Ben Simmons, get me
Yeah.
Kawhi Leonard. I'm good because I knew if we got Kawhi, we were going to win. The biggest downfall of the Philadelphia 76ers and this entire process is Jimmy Butler. I am a 100% Jimmy Buckets guy
So then you
through
blame
and
Brett
throughout.
Brown.
What's that?
You blame Brett Brown.
No, I blame management.
Management. Yeah.
I blame management because Jimmy wanted to be here. Okay. People don't realize this. Jimmy wanted to be here, and Elton Brand and ownership decided that Jimmy wasn't worth that max contract because he was too old, and he would have been too old. Guess what? Don't you have a guy named James Harden right now? So what you did, right? So you elected to let Jimmy go and pay Tobias Harris max money.
And it hasn't panned out. And to your point, you're right with Harden. Like, I don't want to hear, well, bring the pieces. Would you make the trade for James Harden for then?
That is the piece.
Yeah.
Like,
so funny, funny
crazy.
story. You mentioned the Kawhi Leonard. You're talking about the game, obviously, with,
and the double bounce.
Yeah. Yep. I mean, listen, full transparency again, man. I was sitting in a nice little hotel in South Beach having a little mojito. And when that ball was wrapping around and went through, I took a swig and I chuckled. And I was like, I can't wait to get back in Jersey and get on the air. That was a hell of a run by the Sixers that year, man.
But they were missing a piece, right?
Yeah.
They were missing a piece. And Jimmy Butler was the one guy that they got that was a closer. How many games he won by himself, right? And he demanded. See, that's the thing that people forget. He demanded the prowess of the players. He demanded that they actually play the practice.
He held him
the
accountable.
Way they play,
he held him accountable. Yeah.
And they didn't like that.
Yeah.
They didn't like that.
No. All right, last one. Great stuff, Tony. Before I let you get out of here. So updated odds right now, NBA MVP, Tatum, Giannis, Luka, and then Embiid, I think, is right around 250. Tatum's, I think, at plus 220, 230. I looked at a couple. I mean, I think that 1-2 punch, let's not forget about Smart. I think Boston, it's going to be Boston, Milwaukee coming out of the Eastern Conference. I just think they're going to go through teams. But, would you put a futures bet in right now for Embiid?
That's a tough one, man. I wouldn't. And I'm saying that as a Philly guy, only because I don't expect him to last the entire year with the amount of time that he's putting in. I just don't. I think he still has, like, Rich, you look at the way they've been winning. You just rattled off his last probably 8 or 10 games.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, they needed that to win, even with who they have.
I know.
So
that's not good.
No, it's he's not Steph Curry. He's not a guard. It's a guard-driven league. When you're expecting your 7-foot center to be your guard of the team, it's a problem. It doesn't end well. And Giannis is a freak for so many different reasons. And you cannot even put him in that conversation. He's a guard. He's a shooting guard. He's a 3. He's a 4. He's a 5. He does everything, right? Yeah. My money would be on Tatum. My money. With a dark horse. I know he's out right now, but I really thought the dark horse this year is going to be Devin Booker. I think Devin Booker.
I was about to just say Booker.
Yep. He has an opportunity to be that guy.
NBA is a grind, man.
Oh, it is. It is.
I think once you get to the holidays, when you pass Christmas and you get the double, triple header, you get to January, you start to kind of see where teams are at. But man, I mean, if you were to tell me Golden State defending champs, I can't win on the road, Orlando and Detroit having historically bad seasons, San Antonio spitting the bit, Cleveland's got a couple nice players, Atlanta's kind of an enigma, hit or miss. You can't figure out Utah. You can't figure out Phoenix. So maybe I don't want to, contradict myself and say it could be a wide open, but I don't see it. I don't think the way the Sixers are presently constructed, that they're going to get bounced in the first round. I can't really find a favorable, but here's the thing, we've seen this, right? We've seen guys have great Hall of Fame careers, and then you decide it's not working here. They go somewhere else, right? And they win, or at least they have an opportunity. You're a Sixers guy. I mean, think about it. Barkley's probably the most prominent.
Yep.
at the end of the day, but yet he never got over that hump.
Almost
With
all
the
because of Michael,
well, yeah, you don't have to tell me. I mean, Michael
right? All
Jordan
because of Michael.
is
You're
friggin'
a Knicks guy, you know. I remember that, man. I remember those game sevens, man.
horrible,
Xavier McDaniel, Anthony Mason, John Starks, Charles
horrible.
Smith. Man, I
They're,
remember that they were
they're,
some grinds, man. Poor Patrick Ewing.
uh, see, they couldn't get in the Miami series. Don't get me started. Indiana with friggin' Reggie Miller. Yeah,
Oh my God.
93. They should have beat the Rockets. They should have beat the Rockets in 93. 94, they had a very good team. 95, complete choke. And then when they got to 99, they played the Spurs. Latrell basically carried that team with Allen Houston, friggin'
Allen
Chris
Houston.
Childs and Charlie friggin' Ward, Larry Johnson, right? With the
Grandmama.
miracle play on Memorial Day. And, Patrick gets hurt and it just happens, man. I would love to see a Nick championship. I mean, I've been spoiled with the Yankees, obviously. I've been spoiled. The Giants had two big improbable runs. I got my 94 VHS with my Rangers, so I'm okay with that.
Nice.
They should have won it a couple of years ago. But again,
Hey, you just
hockey's
got the
like the
Grom,
NBA.
man.
Huh?
Yeah. Oh, do you? I'm sorry. You said Rangers. I'm thinking for right away. Texas Rangers went my mind. Not thinking New
Oh,
York
no, no, no.
Rangers.
New York
Oh,
Rangers.
so you got
No,
the
no,
you
no,
got the
no, no.
Messier days, man.
Well, yeah. I mean, listen, but
I'm not a
Philly
huge
had,
hockey guy, but I do remember the New York Rangers pretty
yeah, but
well.
Philly had those runs.
Yeah, they did. With Lindros and Leclaire
But
and
think about what's going on right now, right? The hockey. Look, we know about the Flyers. Okay, fine. Sixers are still hanging around. Eagles right now have the horses to rip through the NFC and get to the Super Bowl. And we just saw the run that the Phillies have. So I'll ask you this question in closing. If the Philadelphia Eagles do not get to the Super Bowl, is it considered a choke or a major disappointment?
that's an interesting question because I'm a firm believer of the narrative changes throughout the entire year, right? So if you come in with Super Bowl
Yep.
aspirations and you're expected to win, I think it's a major disappointment. But at the same token, if you're not expected to win, like the Phillies, right? The Phillies weren't expected to go to the World Series. But once you start getting that momentum and get there and you lose, it's a disappointment because the narrative changed. So I think it is a major disappointment because the Philadelphia Eagles have the horses. They have, your win between the trenches, right? They have the miraculous offensive line. They have the gritty defensive line that leads the league in sacks.
Yeah.
They have the corners in Slay and Bradbury. They have the MVP, for my opinion, in Jalen Hurts. You got AJ Brown as a Pro Bowler. Miles, I mean, the list goes on. So yes, it's a major disappointment if they can stay healthy for the rest of this postseason and they do not win a Super Bowl. I at least get to the Super Bowl. They got to get there because anything can happen in that game. But getting there, not getting there to me is a major disappointment with the weak NFC, by the way, as well.
Yeah, I don't know the way you were building up. I think I know who split the bill for that memorabilia in the back. I'm saying Eagles check laying around somewhere.
Look, I don't have no Eagles jersey though. Listen,
I see that pillow.
That's my three favorite guards of all time, right there.
I see that $10 pillow in the back. Get the hell out of here! I see.
Yeah, oh yeah, that's every day's a holiday or Better Homes or whatever my wife.
You got Iverson, you got Kobe, you got Jordan. That's
Kobe, Jordan, and Iverson, man. That's my three guys.
Really?
So yeah, to me, they're my top three power plays, from the guard perspective of all time.
Stick them right there in Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, I'm listen. LeBron's in my top five, but he's not my top three. I hate to say it.
I don't see a Ron Anderson. That guy never met a shot he didn't like.
Ron Anderson, number 20. My Lord, man, you're really going back, man.
I don't mess around, bro.
Wow, but is there some Matt Geiger year? Matt Geiger year back
Jones? There? Let me see. All right, bro. How can everyone follow you on social and promote whatever you need to plug and promote?
Hey man, listen, you can make it easy, man. You just follow me, Tony Cutillo 23. I'm kind of everywhere. So I have my own show called The Final Judgment that airs twice a week. I do interviews with whether it be former athletes, current athletes, nice. Beat writers, you name it. Do my own show, my own content. So you catch me there. Heat Ratio Sports, I do a show there once a week. Win Daily Sports, I do a lot of sports betting talk, a lot of fantasy shows on the weekends, and obviously Sirius XM, you catch me on the weekends on there as well.
Awesome, man. Tony, I appreciate a couple moments, pal. Thanks for jumping on BYP Back Your Play. Next week, maybe we'll get into actual some of these games. But sometimes when we get ripping and rolling, right? You got the
Ah,
play in New York going back
we
and
were,
forth, right,
yeah. Listen, we were having fun, man. It's
right
all
down
good.
95, right?
Yeah,
Cracking
man.
right through.
Exactly,
So
man. Thanks for having
yeah,
me on, brother. I
you
appreciate it.
got it, man. Be well.